Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I just want to ask you before we get into turn your teaching skills into a profitable online course, if you could please mute your microphones. And I have a dog who might make an appearance because she did last time. So I understand that sometimes our fur babies get very excited and they like to jump on us and bark a little bit. So that's all well and good. Let's just keep it at a minimum, though. We have a lot to get through today, but I'm excited to meet you all and hear your questions at the end. So if I use a word like CTA or Rojas or whatever it may be, and you don't understand it, just put it in the chat and I'll be more than happy to go through real quickly and tell you what it is, and then we'll do a recap at the end of questions. I'm so excited. I actually have two special offers for you guys today. Let me just share my screen. Okay, here we go. So my name is Maureen Castellan. I currently live in Miami, Florida. My website is maureencastellan.com. I spent 12 years in the classroom. I did 3.5 years in public school, and then 6 years teaching in private school. I also worked with homeschooled children. I worked at a museum for a year as an educator and developed their curriculum. And I also was an adjunct professor. So a lot of years in the classroom. And then I did 15 years in marketing. So there was some overlap there. I think there's overlap in all of these. But my last year of teaching, I was actually approached to write a book on digital marketing, and that was very exciting because this was when digital marketing was just becoming first known. Like, I remember people weren't even convinced about social media, and for saying saying SEO, instead of saying SEO, they would say CEO and SCC and all of this. So it was a really great time to get in. I jumped in and I ghost wrote a book, and I learned all about digital marketing, like from the ground up, everything about SEO. I mean, the book is wildly outdated now, but it was a very good first step, and it felt like a certification. So when I would go to apply for jobs, back when I had to apply for jobs, that became my calling card, and I could send snippets and I could get the interest that way. And that really, really helped me out. So that's how I did 15 years in marketing. And then during the pandemic, I was working for a telecom company, and they didn't have the training that they did have was just very bare bones. And I had already started transitioning between ghostwriting business books to writing workbooks to going into online courses. And then I was approached of, hey, you have a teaching background. Can you start developing training for, our customer service agents, for our leadership? And that's how I got into LDX. So you'll always hear it two different ways: LDX or LXD. It's interchangeable, really. It's just designing experiences for learners, and it's actually really fabulous. So that is how I am here today, because when I learned about all the budget cuts, I was like, no. Teachers have so many skills, and we'll get into this a little bit later. Teachers have so many skills that are so in demand right now, and I have a 9-to-5. I am in the corporate world. And I will tell you that the skills that I really developed as a teacher have come in so handy. I like can't even explain it to you. And when you have teaching experience, you can pretty much go into any industry. And when I did marketing, every industry. But let's get back to my fellow teachers. 35% of teachers want to leave the classroom in the next 2 years. Probably that's escalated over the last 2 months. For the next 3 years, projections suggest that over 270,000 teachers will quit each year. And that could even be in the middle of the school year. And 50% do not have a plan of action. You're the exception, though. Here are the skills that I see in high demand. So I was working my 9 to 5 as a course creator, learning designer, and learning designer, instructional designer, it's interchangeable. But the 3 skills that I have learned that I just don't even think about, because when you're in the classroom, you're in charge of so many students, you're in charge of so many things. And it is always, always easy to be like, well, especially if teaching has been your only career, to think, well, will I make it outside the classroom? What's waiting for me on the other side? And I'm here to tell you a lot. But the teacher skills that are in top demand: presentation, organization, and knowledge transfer. So presentation, I was telling a friend this morning at brunch. I could tap dance in the middle of Times Square and not think twice about it. And that is in part because as a teacher, we have to get up and we have to present every day. Even if it's for 20 minutes and then they have to do their silent reading or their worksheets or what have you. Being able to stand in front of a group of people and be able to share information, break down information, and do it with a smile and do it in a very warm way. It doesn't have to be a loving way, but a warm way that invites questions. That's a very top skill. And then when you get into HR and human resources and learning and development, L&D, you can facilitate workshops and trainings. And because of your teaching background, it's second nature. You will never have to think, oh my God, do I look okay? Do I sound okay? You already have those skills. So that's a skill that's highly in demand. Organization. I have been on numerous project management platforms, and you have to be very organized in the corporate world. And when you're working with solopreneurs, corporations, what have you, you have to be very organized. So I just started doing my Monday boards, which is just a software. And I was getting so many compliments on them. And it's like, wow, this is really easy to read, really easy to follow. Like, you break everything down so well. And it was shown at a meeting for others to see how they could do it as well. And I thought, wow, that's really exciting, but I just don't think it's a big deal. This is how I used to do my whiteboard in the morning when I used to give my students bell work. Like, organization was everything. And then one of my friends is like, they actually buy Monday boards for like $49 or, $35 or whatever. There's marketplaces for really well-designed Monday boards. And I thought mine was bare bones. But the level of organization that I have, I make a list, I, knock it off. Being well organized is very much an in-demand skill. And I know that we do it so naturally that we may not think how important it is, but think of all your students who were like Pigpen, like, so many papers everywhere, nothing in a binder, their agendas were in disarray. It's very in demand. And then knowledge transfer. So in some of the corporate work that I do, I generate announcements. And so I am part instructional designer, part copywriter at my corporation. And I am able to take very big chunks of information from different departments. It could be from, risk and regulation, customer service, what have you. And what I do is I take the announcement, I make it as bare bones as possible. And then what I almost always do is create a step-by-step process so that everyone can follow along and they can feel comfortable. So breaking down that information, making it digestible, and then giving it to others. And you may not know the ins and outs of their department, but I can transfer that knowledge just because I've done it for so many years. So presentation, goldmine; organization, goldmine; knowledge transfer, goldmine. And then you will find, because you can take such complicated information and break it down, that all of those skills are so interchangeable that you will be a hot commodity. So whether or not you want to stay in the corporate world, you want to do more teaching, you want to work with solopreneurs, it's all in demand and it's all really fabulous. But we are here to talk about designing an online course and launching it. That's my favorite part, is the launching. But there's a new American dream. Justin Welsh was doing really well in his job, and then he got an unexpected layoff and he was devastated. And he didn't know which course I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Something tapped in. But he didn't know what he was going to do. He panicked. I'm sorry, but when you get laid off, you panic. Even if it's expected, you panic. When it's not, you panic as well. So he got really nervous and he was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then he was like, well, I'm really good at LinkedIn. So he created a course called LinkedIn OS, LinkedIn Operating System. And he sold it for like $75 at that point. And he made $4 million in 3 years. And it was because the course was his zone of genius. It was because he felt so comfortable that he was able to create a course that specifically addressed pain points and objections. And we're going to get to that a little bit later, but it's very possible to make money while you sleep and have this stream of income. Because for me, I'm not leaving my corporate job, my 9 to 5, I'm not leaving it. So if you don't want to leave your teaching job just yet, you just want this as a backup plan, great. We can do it full-time, part-time, project by project basis. However you want to design it is the way that we will work together. But there is very few feelings better than going to sleep and waking up and seeing that your courses have sold. It never gets old for me. It's just such freedom, because you can only make so much money per hour. But when it comes to selling your course, the limit does not exist. So it's always something that's really, really amazing. And it's the new American dream, because you don't always have to trade time for money, but value and transformation, that's really where it's at. So how do you design a online course? So I'm going to give you the formula. Like I said, when it didn't matter if I was teaching high schoolers, the elderly, museum learners, it didn't matter what type of learners. In my college classes, when I do my leadership, I always follow this formula. It never fails me. So we're going to go over it very quickly, because I want to make sure that you get this, because when we go into the marketing aspect, I want you to feel very confident in this. And if you have been teaching even for 6 months, this structure is going to be second nature to you. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the problem in general. So think of it like a triangle like this. In general, we're going to talk about the problem. And the thing that you have to really manage here is you have to agitate a little bit. You have to make the problem a little pressing, but you have to be very careful, because in these times, people are already overwhelmed and they don't need another, oh my God, there's a fire. You just simply need to say, hey, here's a problem. Explain the problem. Explain why it's a problem. Explain how it gets worse if you don't, enact your transformation or your step-by-step process or your insights. So general is explain the problem, agitate it a little bit, and then kind of tease how you're going to fix the problem. And that brings us to specific, right? So that's the general. And then we start getting a little bit more, a little narrower, is talk about your experience very briefly on how you solved the problem, how you went through the transformation. And then you're going to talk about your step-by-step process. So no matter what your topic is, origami, people who are on Ozempic and they need to get off, and you have this great, eating plan and workout regime. It doesn't matter what it is, you really need to have a step-by-step process. And that's it. I try to have the process be no more than 3 steps, but your best bet is 3 to 5 steps. 7 if it's very drawn out, although I would venture to say it should be a separate process. So general, talk about the problem, agitate a little bit. Specific, introduce your solution or transformation, do it in a step-by-step process. Make sure you're not overwhelming your students, but get as granular as possible, like how your transformation happened, what it took for you to go through that transformation, and how they can go through the transformation themselves. Because you are promising and delivering on a transformation. People, especially in these times, want to have hope, or they want to have a sense of escape. So those both need a process to go through. So general, we talk about the problem. Specific, we get granular. And then recap. So keep in mind, no matter what age a person is, they are always vulnerable when they're learning. That's just the way that it is. That's the way that I approach things. My approach, whenever I design a course for a corporation, a solopreneur, or even for myself, I always come from the place of, well, the learner is going to feel vulnerable. How can I make them feel more at ease? So the recap gives them the support that they need, because remember, you are not the expert. You are creating experts. You are the Sherpa. We do not need another person talking about how great and wonderful they are. We need action. We need a step-by-step process. We need a sense of hope. So the recap is where you hold their hand and you say, let's go through this another time. You can do it with a game, role play, a worksheet, a group get together where everyone kind of takes a piece of the process and really owns it and then presents it together, however you want to do it. And then the application. So if you are designing courses for children, you can kind of assert your authority in terms of the application, like you need to do this. I will be checking this at this point in time. For adults, it's more like, these are a couple of activities, we can discuss them on our call, but this is what you should do. And so when I am designing courses for adults, I tend to lean more on my own experience. But again, in the vein of being a Sherpa and not an expert, I present it as, these are the challenges that I faced. So let's see how you get through them based on what you have learned. So I don't say I went through this. I just present it as kind of matter of fact, as scenarios. And you will find that adults love, when I design courses, the adults love the scenarios more than any other part. So create as many scenarios as possible. What I like to do is do a bank and then rotate it. And then when we have our calls, I'll sometimes pull from my bank to kind of give them a little change up from the actual video course. So again, very easy, but absolutely essential. General, specific, recap, application. And the best part is this formula can work for all your modules. So I tend to create courses that are between 90 minutes and 2 hours. I think anything past 2 hours should be a separate course. Adults only have so much attention span. That's just the way that it is. And I always work with that. If you are like, well, I have so much information, I have to give them to them all at once. The problem isn't that people don't have the information. The problem is that people don't know how to process the information. And by giving them a 2-hour course is kind of like a warm up, is kind of like, something that shows your expertise while making them the experts, that's going to do well. So I would say 5 to 7 modules, cap at about 2 hours. And I like to do a mix of video. You can record on Google Meet, you can record on your computer, you can record on YouTube, and then you make it just unlisted or private. But I would have some video in your course, just because it's just a good way to get a sense of connection. But again, make sure it's between 5 to 7 modules. So you have your intro, 5 to 7 modules, and then your outro, your closer, what they learn and how they can get in touch with you. Because a course is really part of your funnel that we will talk about in a little bit. But speaking of videos and courses, my favorite platform is MemberVault. I just find it's the right price. It's the easiest to use. And I find that because I like it so much, I tend to recommend it to my clients. And then when they have any issues, because with tech, something always comes up, I am able to go in and fix it because I use MemberVault almost exclusively. So if you are writing down a list of things or websites that you want to go to, check this one out. It's the one I use, and I hope you like it too, because it's pretty seamless. But let's get into marketing real quick, because here is the thing that I tell people when they are doing their marketing is remember that it's business work and not busy work. You may have heard there's so many things out there, and I was a social media manager for a while. And I hear so many wrong things. Even now I hear so many wrong things. I was on a live yesterday and I was like, what is this person talking about? You don't need to spend 2 hours a day going through and commenting on other people's videos. You don't need to, post 3 times a day. Oh my God, what other things? You don't need to have like a wacky intro where you're like riding a unicycle and there's glitter bombs. Like, you don't need any of that. You just need to simply connect. And part of the problem that people have with social media and managing it and really connecting is because they're so obsessed with the likes and the views when they really need to be into the comments. The comments are really what shows your engagement and how connected you are. So when you think of social media marketing or marketing in general, it's about connection and community. And I'm making this prediction right now. Moving forward, 2025, 2026, 2027, the future isn't so much about social media. It's going to be more about private communities that meet on social media. So you will have, subscribers only. You will have Zoom calls where everyone gets the invite via social media. But the way that social media is turning so toxic right now, people are no longer seeing it as a way to connect. They're growing a little tired of it. So they want a space, they want a safe space. And remember, during the pandemic, a lot of people, lost their friend groups. Like maybe they were just doing okay socially, and then the pandemic kind of pulled the rug from underneath them and they kind of had a scramble. So people are looking for communities. They're looking for a safe space, because the way that I explain it to my clients is when we were in junior high and someone saved a seat for you at the table and they were happy to see you, that is one of the best feelings. That's a feeling we never grow out of. And so that's what you kind of have to bring to social media, that sense of, I saved you a seat. So social media. Okay. So here is something that a lot of people get wrong. You cannot be on every platform. I am not on every platform. I am on TikTok YouTube, and LinkedIn. I don't do all the other platforms because I simply do not have time for them. That is not a judgment on how great they are. It's just these are the ones that I have found the greater sense of community in. So what people miss is they think, well, I'll just do all of platforms, or I'll only just do one. But you can't think like that. You have to have one platform that's for community. So for me, it's TikTok and it's YouTube, and I post videos and I make comments, and I have people who they'll join my lives, and it's like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're here, you know? So it's a great sense of community. TikTok is, for me, one of the better platforms for community. And I do like YouTube, but you know, YouTube is very solid. There's no threat of a ban, but their algorithm is a little particular, and we can go into it in another webinar because there's a couple of tricks with YouTube. But I will say my SEO background came in very handy with YouTube, very, very handy. And then for TikTok, you just really have to focus on connecting. And then your other platform is your high visibility platform. So for me, that's LinkedIn. So I test out my material on lives. I test it out, you know, on TikTok and YouTube. And then I go back and I look at what really tracked well. And I will say that for community and for everything, you can track a lot on the algorithm and on the insights on TikTok really well. So you can see where people lost interest. You can see where they gained interest. You can see the exact demographics. I've run a few ads on TikTok because their analytics are, I mean, they are incredible. So I take what I learned from TikTok and then I post it on high visibility LinkedIn, because that's where you really need to show up. LinkedIn is where you have to think of it as a job interview. Like TikTok and YouTube, it's more about, hey, let's go get coffee. Let's like chat, see what's going on. And LinkedIn is your job interview. So it's very important that you make that distinction. You try out your material and then you present it in a high visibility one. You know, comedians, they don't go to Madison Square Garden with new material. They test it out in the smaller clubs. They test it out on the lives. You have to be the same way. If you need inspiration for designing posts, then you can go to my LinkedIn and you can see I do a hook. And remember, a hook is a connector. It's not anything crazy. You know, now is not the time to say wild things. So I say something along the lines of, you know, are you tired of being in the classroom and want more freedom over your schedule and to make money while you sleep? There's your hook. And then I take it personal. I was in the classroom for 12 years and marketing for 15. Here are the ways that worked for me, and I'm pretty sure that they can work for you. And then 3 bullet points. Remember, the human mind only thinks in terms of 3. So give only 3 bullet points, and then give them a directive, a call to action, a CTA, where it's like, join my community, buy my course. I have my 6-week program. Sign up now. So something that really gets their interest. And it's a little formulaic, and I am a creative person. And so it took me a little bit of time to get used to writing within a formula, but that's kind of how you have to write for social media, is to really think of it as a formula and stick with it and be consistent. You don't have to spend 6 hours on a live. You don't have to post 18 times a day. You just have to be consistent. So for me, it's about once a day. I post around 4 o'clock. And the algorithm knows and rewards me for posting at that time. So don't overthink social media. Just you know, hook, personal, 3 bullets, directive, 1 for community to test out your material, and then another platform to post your very polished materials. And then Eventbrite is something that I've been into in the last month, and my business partner, Jasmine Partida, she does the marketing of online courses, and I do all the writing. And it's it's just really amazing to be on Eventbrite because you really reach a global audience. Before the pandemic, people would buy tickets to a once a year in-person conference. And so it was more for in-person events. And now it's a lot of webinars. But I like it because I find that a lot of people are on social media to really socialize, or in some cases argue, but Eventbrite is where people really go because they want to learn something. They're very driven. That they're interested when they come to your webinar on Eventbrite, like you guys did. But again, just like how when you're posting on social media, stick to a schedule and provide value. So you can't just do a webinar and be like, well, people are going to love me because I'm an expert and I'm sharing all this information. There's a big difference between sharing information and giving value. So when people sign up for my webinar, I send them the replay. Then I send them all these resources. And I email my list about twice a week with value. You will never, ever get an email from me where it's not like something that I'm trying to support you with. So it's whether my webinar is starting in 10 minutes, don't forget to join me, or, hey, I made this video just for you guys, or here's a checklist. Here is a couple of prompts. Like, you don't show up to people's houses empty-handed. You have to provide value because information is endless. We're in the age of information and misinformation, but what's really missing is a sense of value. So when my clients are like, well, my niche is saturated, I don't know if I should do a course in that niche. And I'm like, saturated just means that there's a lot of bots out there. People have designed courses in AI. There's no human connection. There is value in there. That niche is missing real, like, of the earth value, and you can provide that. So transformation and value, value is more important than information. And we'll get into that a little bit more either on this webinar or another one, or if you have a question about it, happy to answer it when we get to the QA in a couple of minutes. But one way that you should always consider is lives. So if you have been in the classroom, being live is not an issue. You just basically turn on the camera and you start talking. And it is just, I don't know, at this point, it's second nature. If I have to go live in like 20 minutes, I won't think twice about it. That doesn't mean that it's not still nerve-wracking, and you shouldn't, have your notes. Like, I have my notes here in my notebook. And I practice. I use the lives to practice, and I practice and I polish my materials, and people ask questions. That's how I met my business partner, Jasmine, is because she was on a live and she was giving such value, not information, but such value. So when you go live, give someone a freebie. Hey, drop a comment, DM me, and I will send you this freebie. Make sure that you look presentable on camera. It will raise your visibility, but you want it to raise it in a good way. You don't want anyone to share your live and be like, oh my God, this person looks this, that, and the other, or what they're saying is just odd. Provide value. And if you are really stuck on, well, I don't know what to say, go live and make it a challenge. Sometimes I'll go live and I'll say, tell me what you want your online course to be about, and let's workshop your niche. Tell me what you want, and I'll dig deeper. So sometimes my lives are just me taking someone from a very broad niche to a very granular niche, like a sub niche within a sub niche. And make sure that you are always providing value. So an example of challenges is Elf took off in the pandemic because of lives. They have, like, let's just say green glitter eyeliner. And they presented the challenge of, well, how would you make a full look of this? How would you use it as a highlighter? How would you use it as a lipstick? And people loved it because people love to be challenged in the things that they love. When you are showing people a new way to do things. Challenges are the best. So people were tuning in just to see the level of creativity, just to see if they could go through and replicate it themselves. Like it was just such a win. And that's really when Elf took off. So you can take off during a live. There's someone in my marketing group and they took off during a live. I mean, they went viral. And because it was on TikTok, we were able to track the moment they went viral, and they're in the stratosphere right now. So, it does work. It really does. But speaking of providing value, I provided my link tree in the Eventbrite description, but I can also share it in the chat when I'm done with the presentation. But you can get 50% off my course with the code webinar. It will be 50% off for you guys. And then when you buy my course, you can also go to my website, maureencastellan.com, and sign up for a 15-minute consultation, and we can go over what your course is going to be about. You can also join my community. We are meeting every Wednesday. We have a Zoom every Wednesday, and that is our time to be in contact with each other. That is our time to connect, and that is your time to really ask me questions. So Wednesday night is the phone call, and then I always do a webinar Saturday at 3. And so you can, when you join my community, you have access to both. And you can ask questions in the QA here. And then if you want more of a private kind of vibe, then join the community. And then something that I thought of on Thursday, and I don't know about you guys, but it is always when I am on a WALK with my dog that the greatest ideas come to me. So, and I had to write it down very quickly. I'm going to be doing a 6-week program, and it's going to be called Sell by September. And it is going to help teachers. It's going to start in June, and it's going to show teachers how to design and launch an online course so they can have a stream of passive income. So how it's going to be is every Monday, I'm going to drop a video, and then we're going to talk about it in a call on Monday night. So if you're already in my community, then you have time with me on Monday, then on Wednesday, and then on Saturday. So you can have so many ways to work with me, because I really, really feel like now is the time to kind of get your life preservers out. We don't know what's going to happen, but I want you to have some options. So let me go back here and let me put it in the chat. Let me just put that in. There we go. So you can work with me in a couple of different ways. Let me pin that. So yeah, that is where we are at. Let me know what your questions are. And again, you can buy my online course for 50% off with the code webinar. You can join my community where we have a call every Wednesday, and then we talk every Wednesday, and then you can join my webinar. And then when you join the 6-week challenge or the 6-week program, you'll have that time. So you theoretically can have, 3 to 5 hours with me a week. And so then we can really work on doing your online course. So let me look at some of the questions in the chat. I am so happy that my dog let me have all this uninterrupted time. Am I seeing any trends with online courses? Okay, so Like I said earlier, a lot of online courses should be focusing on hope, and they should be focused on a sense of escape. So anything that's fun, like origami, cooking, baking, anything that we kind of got into during the pandemic, like that sort of vibe, is going to sell really well. And then anything that helps people with making money. So, how to be a social media manager, how to make money while you sleep, how to design a profitable online course, things like that. So, I would divide it into two categories of hope and escape. Sorry, I need to read these out loud. What should I do if I don't already have a list? Okay. Create a webinar and, record it and then offer it as a freebie. Or you can design the first module of your online course and then give it out to people who are interested, and then you can build your newsletter that way. You can post it on LinkedIn. You can join groups. You can kind of see where everyone is at. You can do something called social listening, where you basically go through different social platforms and you type in what your course is going to be about. You see how many communities. Then you create a spreadsheet. I have one that's when I'm doing it for clients, which is comments, questions, arguments, and miscellaneous. So I was telling someone the other day about how when I was a baby copywriter, I wrote a whole bunch of fake reviews. And if you DM me, I'll tell you which companies I did them for. But, people would leave these reviews and these comments. So I can spot a fake one a mile away. So when you are creating your list, have it so that you are really providing them with something of value. So when you see someone who is making a comment like, great, oh, my life changed so much, thank you so much, blah, 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 that's not a real comment. Something that's very in depth and how they applied it. So if someone were to write a comment about this course or this webinar, they would say, I really enjoyed the webinar. I really liked how she broke down that there's two different types of social media platforms, and I am now starting to use one X, Y, and Z way, or what have you. So you are really, really focused on how they see the value of your product or service in, your online course. So then it's questions. Your whole social media content can be just about answering questions. Questions are very valuable. And make a list of them, because people like when you're in the classroom, you'll have a student who will be like, what's the date? And you'll get that same question over and over again. You will see the same questions over and over again. And when you've kind of hit the bottom of the social listening is when you start seeing the same comments over and over again. And then arguments just means there's division, which means there's opportunity, and which means there's heightened emotions. So you really want to zero in on what the emotions are, and then make a note of that. And then miscellaneous can be a word that you see over and over again. Like, there's so many slang terms. Like, sometimes I have to ask like the younger people in the office, like what something means. But you need to be able to walk the walk. So make sure you understand what, and when you're talking to a niche, you need to go beyond speaking in their language. You need to speak in their dialect. Because, like if I say I was a 3100 at a magnet, some of you will get it, some of you won't. I mean, like I could use my teacher slang, or I could use my marketing slang, or my, online course design slang. Like, people want to know that you speak their language because people want to talk shorthand. So when you can talk shorthand with them, you will gain credibility. So let me see what else. I'm going to roll out my 6-week program in the following week. It's going to start in June. I'm thinking around June 16th, and it's going to be a 6-week program. It's not going to be a challenge. It's going to be a program. And I'm going to, again, like I talked about, show you how to design an online course and launch it to sell. And it's going to really give you that kind of time frame that a lot of you may need, because, you know, it's the summer, you have a little bit more free time, you know, you're not twiddling your thumbs, but you have a little bit more breathing room. And then I designed it so that it would end at the last week of July, so that when you go back into the classroom in August, you can kind of recalibrate during that time, because I know the beginning of the school year and the end of the school year were very stressful for me. But I want to make sure that you have what you need to feel successful. So then when you go into August, you won't feel like you've lost everything. And then you'll be ready to, you know, put your course out into the world and, you know, make money while you sleep around Labor Day. Let's see. Let me keep an eye on the time. Okay. But again, my online course, you can go and buy it right now for 50% off with the code webinar. Join my community. We meet every Wednesday. You will also get a private LinkedIn group, so you can get eyeball to eyeball time with me on Wednesday. And then if you ever have a question, you can just put it into the private LinkedIn group and I can answer it that way. Or you can join my 6-week program, Sell by September. So there are a lot of ways to come and work with me. But go visit my website, take a look around. You can buy my online course there. And I wish you all the best. And I look forward to meeting you and seeing some of you in my community. Take care.